Hello, everybody, and a very happy 2025 to you as we celebrate the beginning of a new year. We also get a whole new year of movies and TV shows and stuff on streaming. And as I've done the past few years, I've decided to give you a one-stop shop, a guide, if you will, to the year ahead. Now, as always, I can't cover everything, so I'm not going to list every new show or every new movie coming out this year. And especially as we get further along in the year, a lot of these release dates are subject to change, and there's going to be some stuff that pops up that we don't even know about. But having said that, let's jump into the year ahead. It's going to be a year filled with a lot of movies that were pushed back due to the strikes, and it is a pretty full 2025. And we'll start with just a couple days from now, January 3rd, the latest Wallace and Gromit film, Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, debuts on Netflix. It's the second feature-length film featuring Wallace and Gromit 20 years after 2005's The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I have to say, spoiler alert, I have seen this movie. It is a delightful animated film and a likely contender at the Academy Awards later this year for Best Animated Feature. On January 10th, we get Den of Thieves 2 Pantera in theaters. It's a follow-up to the 2018 film that I surprisingly quite enjoyed. Gerard Butler returns as Big Nick O'Brien, hot on the trail of Donnie Wilson, played by O'Shea Jackson Jr. Big Nick appears to be flipping sides in this movie to help pull off a big heist, but is this just another ploy in the manhunt for his great nemesis? We'll find out in just a couple weeks. Also opening in wide release on January 10th is the film Better Man from Greatest Showman director Michael Gracie. Better Man is a biopic about British singer Robbie Williams, except Robbie Williams is played by a CGI chimpanzee. It looks as nutty as it sounds, but critical response thus far has been positive. Definitely one of the most unique ideas that I've heard recently. On January 17th, Wolfman hits theaters. It's co-written and directed by Leigh Whannell, who already put his stamp on a Universal classic with 2020's The Invisible Man. Christopher Abbott plays a father who's scratched by a werewolf on the night of a full moon and becomes the Wolfman. That's pretty much right there in the title. Julia Garner co-stars in the film. Hitting Netflix on January 17th is the film Back in Action. Cameron Diaz returns to the screen for the first time in over a decade as a former CIA agent who's exposed and has to re-enter the life alongside another former spy played by Jamie Foxx. This premise has been done to death, but we'll see if the combination of Foxx and Diaz can get those Netflix accounts buzzing. On January 24th, Star Trek Section 31 hits Paramount+. This is a spin-off film from Star Trek Discovery featuring Michelle Yeoh's character from the show. This was originally going to be a series before the strategy shifted. I'm not really plugged into the Discovery storyline, but I do love Michelle Yeoh, so we'll see if this one works. On January 31st, Companion hits theaters. I honestly have no idea what this movie's about. All I know is that it's one of the most intriguing trailers I've seen in a while. Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid star in it, and it's getting an IMAX release. That's all I need to know to be there on opening weekend. Quite frankly, I like a movie that has some surprises in store. On February 6th, Invincible Season 3 hits Amazon Prime Video. I'm finally all caught up on the Boys universe, so I guess if we're going for dark superheroes, then Invincible needs to move up the list. Maybe I should catch up before the latest season starts. On February 7th, Love Hurts hits theaters. Ke Huy Quan stars as a former hitman turned realtor who finds himself drawn back to his old ways when his brother returns with a vendetta. Ariana DeBose, Daniel Wu, and Marshawn Lynch co-star. I loved Ke Huy Quan's fight scene in Everything Everywhere All at Once, so I'll definitely be checking this one out. On February 13th, the Cobra Kai saga draws to a close. Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 3 debuts on Netflix. This show has come a long way since its start as a YouTube Red original series back in 2018, and it crane kicks off a big Karate Kid year with another Karate Kid feature hitting theaters later in the summer. Also on February 13th, Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy debuts on Peacock. The fourth Bridget Jones movie finds Bridget still juggling a complicated love life. I haven't actually seen any of the Bridget Jones movies, but hey, listen, props to them for keeping this cast together over the decades. February 14th is a big day for the MCU. Captain America: Brave New World hits theaters. Anthony Mackie returns as Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, taking on some kind of devious organization and answering to President Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford, taking over for the late William Hurt. The marketing has focused heavily on Red Hulk's appearance, and the movie's reportedly undergone extensive reshooting, so we will see if this movie can continue Cap and Marvel's cinematic legacy. Also hitting February 14th is Paddington in Peru. Our friends across the pond have had this movie since November, but it doesn't open stateside until February after being delayed from a January release. Paddington decides to visit his Aunt Lucy in Peru, and I assume that hijinks ensue. It'll be tough to top Paddington 2, but if it's half as good as that movie, it'll still be decent. On February 20th, Reacher Season 3 debuts on Amazon. The first 3 episodes will debut on the 20th, with a new episode weekly after that. Reacher Season 2 was not as well received as Season 1, which you see a lot with breakout shows, so we'll see if it can return to the buzzy action hit of 2022. Honestly, I'm just glad that Reacher's not taking 3 years between seasons, as we're seeing with most shows. On February 21st, The Monkey hits theaters. Osgood Perkins, who had a breakout hit in 2024 with Longlegs, returns with this adaptation of a Stephen King short story about a sinister monkey toy. With Perkins, King, and producer James Wan attached, this is a who's who of cross-generational horror. I was a big fan of Longlegs, so I will be very excited to see what Perkins comes up with next. On February 28th, the day the Earth blew up, a Looney Tunes movie hits theaters. Warner Brothers has been doing Looney Tunes dirty. This was supposed to debut on Max 2 years ago, but its release was canceled. Then it was shuffled around distributors. It's even been released in a few countries around the world, and now it makes its debut theatrically. I may just see this movie in solidarity with Coyote vs. Acme, another Looney Tunes film that we may never see due to tax purposes. I don't know what they're doing. On March 4th, Daredevil Born Again debuts on Disney+. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio have already made their MCU debuts, but they reunite for a quasi-continuation of the Netflix series, now officially under the Marvel Studios banner. I love Cox in this role, and I love Netflix's Daredevil. We will see if it can recapture the magic of that Netflix hit with its 9-episode debut season. On March 7th, we finally get the latest film from Bong Joon-ho, Mickey 17. It was originally supposed to be a late 2024 release, then it was pushed to January, then again to April, and then recently moved back up to March. Bong Joon-ho's latest stars Robert Pattinson as a space grunt who signs up to die over and over again. I mean, Bong Joon-ho, Robert Pattinson, sci-fi, sign me up on multiple fronts. March 14th sees the debut of The Electric State on Netflix. Speaking of MCU directors, the Russo brothers are back behind the camera for their first film since 2022's The Gray Man. It's set in the 90s and features a girl played by Millie Bobby Brown searching for her brother with the assistance of a robot in a world that seems like it's full of robots. Chris Pratt, Ke Huy Quan, Stanley Tucci, and Giancarlo Esposito.
Hello, my name is Giancarlo Esposito.
All play humans with an all-star voice cast providing what I assume to be the robot voices. On March 21st, Snow White hits theaters, so mark your internet outrage calendar, because after what seems like years of buildup, Rachel Zegler debuts as the first Disney princess and the latest in their live-action remake slate. From comments in the press to dwarf erasure outrage, this movie seems to have done nothing but generate a whirlwind of anger, and it certainly doesn't help that the trailer didn't look very good. Regardless of how it performs, this movie will undoubtedly be the talk of the internet until the views run dry. Also getting a theatrical release on March 21st is Magazine Dreams. Speaking of controversy, Magazine Dreams debuted almost 2 years ago at Sundance, featuring a performance from Jonathan Majors that was instantly positioned for awards attention. His legal troubles torpedoed that release, but a new distributor is now putting it in theaters. I've seen this movie. He's terrifying and great in it as an aspiring bodybuilder who spirals out of touch with reality. But this is unlikely to be received the same way that it would have been under different circumstances. Finally, currently scheduled for March 21st is the film Alto Nights, which is written by Nicholas Pileggi and directed by Barry Levinson. It is a mob movie starring Robert De Niro, who plays not one but 2 roles. There's a lot of that going around right now. And with Nicholas Pileggi and Robert De Niro on board, we are one Martin Scorsese short of a Goodfellas reunion. I haven't seen anything about this film. I don't even know if it's going to make this date, but Robert De Niro in a double role in a mob movie is at least worthy of my attention. A couple of things are on spring release dates TBD. First is Death of a Unicorn. A24 is releasing this supernatural horror comedy about a father and daughter played by Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega who accidentally kill a unicorn and suffer the consequences. Richard E. Grant, Will Poulter, and Téa Leoni are among the co-stars. The trailer debuted just a couple weeks ago, and this is definitely a must-see for me. Also debuting sometime in the spring is The Last of Us Season 2 on Max. As has become standard, the second season of The Last of Us debuts more than 2 years after Season 1 premiered, though the strikes did play a part in that. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey return with Jeffrey Wright and Catherine O'Hara among the new cast members. I haven't played The Last of Us 2, and the producers have said that they plan to adapt that game over multiple seasons. I've heard there were some things in the game that people weren't very happy with, so we'll just have to see what's done with the adaptation of that game and if it will make people just a little bit happier than it did in video game form. On April 4th, a Minecraft movie hits theaters, another video game adaptation, although this one is a movie, and let's be honest, video game movies don't have a very good track record, Sonic notwithstanding. I'm an old who's never played Minecraft, so I guess the kids will probably love it. A rough first trailer seems to have been redeemed by a better second one. Jack Black and Jason Momoa star from director Jared Hess of Napoleon Dynamite fame. On April 18th, Ryan Coogler returns with Sinners, which is taking the release date that was originally given to Mickey 17. This is Coogler's latest film as writer-director and his first non-Black Panther movie since Creed back in 2015. Coogler once again works with Michael B. Jordan, who pulls double duty as twin brothers. Not a whole lot is known about this movie, but it's been said that it's going to be a vampire film, and we'll see what Coogler has up his sleeve. On April 22nd, we get the debut of another strike-delayed show, Andor Season 2 on Disney+. This was one of 2022's biggest surprises, and I think the best Disney Star Wars show that we've seen so far. Tony Gilroy's prequel to the prequel that was Rogue One follows Cassian Andor in the aftermath of the rebellion on Ferrix. This will be the conclusion of Andor's story, leading right into Rogue One. On April 25th, The Accountant 2 hits theaters. The Accountant, if you'll remember, was a 2016 movie about Ben Affleck's numbers whiz and how he did the books for some very bad people. Well, The Accountant is back with director Gavin O'Connor returning along with J.K. Simmons and John Bernthal. However, U.S. distribution has shifted from Warner Brothers, who distributed the first film here in the United States, to Amazon MGM. Summer kicks off on May 2nd with Thunderbolts in the traditional Marvel slot. Thunderbolts unites a group of misfit characters, including Florence Pugh's Yelena, David Harbour's Red Guardian, and Sebastian Stan's Bucky. And honestly, this is the MCU movie that I'm most curious about next year, and the one that I think has the most stuff that we don't really know about it just yet. Currently scheduled for May 9th is the release of Atlantis, directed by Michel Gondry, his first English language film in about a decade. The movie was adapted from the early days of musician Pharrell Williams and also stars Kelvin Harrison Jr., Halle Bailey, Janelle Monáe, Quinta Brunson, and Andre 3000. Also on the schedule for May 9th is a movie called A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey, which is from South Korean director Kogonada. It's his feature follow-up to After Yang, which was a hit on the indie circuit. He's also done work on TV shows like Pachinko and The Acolyte. Not much is known about this film, except that it is reportedly a fantasy and stars Colin Farrell and Margot Robbie. On May 16th, Final Destination Bloodlines is scheduled to be released. It is the 6th Final Destination film, a franchise that I've enjoyed more or less throughout. Not many details are known about the movie except that Tony Todd will be making his final appearance as the mysterious Bloodworth. He sadly passed away back in November. On May 23rd, yet another Disney live-action remake, Lilo and Stitch, hits theaters. The beloved 2002 film is being remade by director Dean Fleischer Camp, who directed Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Stitch will return to a live-action Hawaii this time to try to cash in on the nostalgia from the animated film. The original Lilo and Stitch nearly took Tom Cruise out at the box office because back in 2002, it opened up against Minority Report. Minority Report ended up winning the weekend by less than $1 million. And it's just kind of strange how the world works because also opening currently the same weekend as Lilo and Stitch is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. That's right, Tom Cruise faces off against Stitch once again in the movie formerly known as Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 2. This is obviously being set up by the studio as the final mission, but Cruise apparently wants to keep going, so we'll see what happens there. And we'll see if he can build on the somewhat disappointing performance of Dead Reckoning Part 1 back in Hollywood's summer 2023 Death Spiral. On May 30th, another Karate Kid film hits theaters, Karate Kid Legends. Two Karate Kid verses collide when Ralph Macchio's Daniel LaRusso meets Jackie Chan's Mr. Han from the 2010 remake. Newcomer Ben Wang is playing the next, or let's say the new Karate Kid, and we will see if the Cobra Kai dojo has a part to play in this as well. Also on May 30th, we get The Life of Chuck, which is Mike Flanagan's adaptation of a Stephen King novella. It came out of nowhere to capture the Audience Award at the Toronto Film Festival. Neon picked it up for distribution soon after, and it stars Tom Hiddleston as Chuck, with Jacob Tremblay as a younger Chuck, and Nick Offerman, Mark Hamill, Karen Gillan, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and David Dismouchin among the ensemble cast. I've heard there's a bit of a sci-fi tinge to the movie. Again, I don't really know a whole lot about it, but given the talent that's involved, I'll definitely be there. A few things that are going to be released this summer but don't have dates announced include The Bear Season 4 on Hulu and Disney+. The show has traditionally debuted in June as we await the critical response to Carmine's new restaurant. Alien Earth debuts this summer on FX and Hulu. Noah Hawley's take on the Alien franchise, set shortly prior to the events of the first Alien film, hits the network after a long journey to the screen that began in 2020. And also currently slated for sometime in the summer is Spike Lee's film Highest to Lowest. He returns to the crime genre, reuniting with Denzel Washington for the first time since Inside Man. In this remake of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low, A24 will release this film theatrically first, and it will then find distribution on Apple TV+. On June 6th, John Wick gets spun off in From the World of John Wick, Ballerina. Lynn Wiseman returns to the director's chair for the first time since 2012's remake of Total Recall. Ooh, I don't know about that. Ana de Armas plays an assassin out for revenge, and the film is set between John Wick 2 and John Wick 3, which means you'll almost definitely be seeing John Wick at some point, something that the trailer basically confirmed. On June 13th, Pixar returns with Elio. It's an original movie about an alien-obsessed young boy who's beamed up by aliens and mistaken for the leader of Earth. And also currently, I don't know if this movie's going to stay there, scheduled on June 13th, is the live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. Dean DeBlois is remaking his own animated film with this recreation of DreamWorks' 2010 hit. Mason Thames plays Hiccup, with Gerard Butler reprising his role as Hiccup's father. Toothless, I assume, will play himself. By the way, this brings us up to 3 live-action remakes of animated films so far in 2025. On June 20th, 28 years later, is scheduled for release. Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, the director and writer of 28 Days Later, return for the 3rd film in the franchise, set, you guessed it, 28 years after the outbreak of the Rage virus. A sequel to this movie, directed by Nia DaCosta, was filmed back-to-back with it, and it's scheduled for release, I believe, in 2026. Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, and Ralph Fiennes are among the humans fighting for survival. Chalk this one up in the I'll believe it when I see it category, but allegedly on June 24th, the long in gestation Ironheart will debut on Disney+. This 6-episode series comes over 4 years after it was announced, and more than 2 years after Riri Williams was introduced in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Dominique Thorne will reprise her role alongside Anthony Ramos as the Hood, and this will also officially be the end of Marvel's Phase 5, a phase that I think the studio will be anxious to put behind them. On June 27th, we get maybe the last mega-budget film greenlit by Apple, F1. Joseph Kosinski directs, with Apple Studios financing and Warner Brothers distributing. Brad Pitt plays a retired Formula One driver who returns to mentor a young driver, played by Damson Idris. And while this could be the last big film we get from Apple, we'll always have Argyle. Also scheduled for June 27th is Megan 2.0. Megan returns to wreak more havoc in this sequel to the original film that grew from viral hit to actual hit. Violet McGraw and Allison Williams also return. We'll see if this movie does well enough to warrant a 3rd film, although it should be noted that Megan, as spelled in the title, already has a 3 in it, so they're really going to have to think outside of the box as far as what to name a 3rd Megan film. According to Adam Sandler, at some point in July, we will see Happy Gilmore 2 on Netflix. Murder mystery director Kyle Newacheck directs the sequel, which Sandler wrote with Tim Herlihy. Most of the original cast is returning, though there are no plot details as of now. Legacy comedy sequels have a tough track record. Adam Sandler movies on Netflix also have a tough track record, but I love Happy Gilmore, so I'm going to hold out hope until the very last moment. On July 2nd, one of my favorite franchises returns, Jurassic World Rebirth. Just a few years after quote-unquote ending the saga, Jurassic World is back with Rogue One and the creator-director Gareth Edwards taking over. Original Jurassic Park screenwriter David Koepp wrote the movie, his first Jurassic movie since The Lost World back in 1997. Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali go in search of dinosaurs in order to obtain a miracle cure, but things predictably go wrong. The Jurassic franchise, as far as I'm concerned now, is just another thing, so whatever. Here's an interesting one that's currently attached to a July 4th date, an untitled Matt Stone, Trey Parker musical. That's right, the South Park creators are teaming up with Kendrick Lamar for a musical comedy that is on the release schedule for July 4th. No plot details have been officially announced, but reports say that it deals with the topic of race. This feels like it's highly likely to change, but it is on the release schedule as of now, regardless though of when it comes out. Trey Parker, Matt Stone, live action musical. I'm interested. On July 11th, the DCU officially launches in theaters with James Gunn's Superman. David Cornsweet takes over as the Man of Steel, and the trailer did gangbusters numbers and generated a wide array of responses from excited Superman fans to still annoyed Snyderverse fans when it debuted a couple weeks ago. Gunn has hinted that the future of the entire DC universe may rest on the performance of this film, so, no pressure. On July 18th, an untitled I Know What You Did Last Summer movie, which could just be titled I Know What You Did Last Summer, will be hitting theaters. After Scream's successful revival, another 90s Kevin Williamson written franchise is coming back, combining original stars and fresh victims. Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. reportedly are returning in the movie directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson, who directed Netflix's Do Revenge. On July 25th, another big one for the MCU, the Fantastic Four, The First Steps, the launch of a new era. It begins with the introduction of Marvel's First Family, directed by WandaVision's Matt Shakman. Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and Eben Moss-Backrack will reportedly face off against Galactus, voiced by Ralph Ineson. This is a critical movie for Marvel, the first time we've seen the Fantastic Four since 2015's disastrous Fanforstic. However, if this movie's a hit and the public really latches on to Fantastic Four like they did with Guardians of the Galaxy or the Avengers, this really does open up a lot of new avenues for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Currently, at some point in August, Peacemaker Season 2 is scheduled to release 3.5 years after Season 1 ended. John Cena returns along with his motley crew from his Suicide Squad spinoff show. James Gunn has been a busy man. He was showrunner and directed multiple episodes of this while also prepping and working on Superman. My main question, however, is what will the new musical number be for the opening credits, and can it possibly top the awesomeness of Season 1? Hitting theaters on August 1st is The Bad Guys 2. The first film was a nice little pandemic-era hit, so DreamWorks is getting a sequel out to take advantage of the late summer crowds. This time, a group called the Bad Girls tries to pull our anti-heroes back into a life of crime. Also scheduled to open on August 1st is The Naked Gun. The Lonely Island's Akiva Schaffer is directing this long-in-development remake produced by Seth MacFarlane and starring Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin Jr., son of Leslie Nielsen's character, I assume. I love the Naked Gun movies. I think we don't have enough of those kind of silly comedies, so I'm looking forward to this. And if you don't think that Liam Neeson can pull off comedy, I implore you to go out there and look up his scene from the Ricky Gervais show, Life's Too Short. Ooh, I'm excited about this one. Currently scheduled for August 8th is an untitled Paul Thomas Anderson movie. WB gave the director over $100 million and a summer release date for his next film, which will be released in IMAX. We don't really know anything about it other than that the cast includes Leonardo DiCaprio, Regina Hall, Benicio del Toro, and Sean Penn. Rumors say that it's going to have a modern-day political angle, which I'm sure will go just great. Also on August 8th, we get Freakier Friday. 22 years after the Freaky Friday remake hit theaters, the 2003 movie gets a sequel with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis returning along with the rest of the cast. Lohan's character is now old enough to have her own kids, so we could be looking at a tri-generational switch. The nostalgia train is really unstoppable at this point when it comes to this movie and other movies like it, so the best we can do really is just cross our fingers. Opening on August 15th is Nobody 2. Indonesian director Timo Tjahjanto takes the reins on the sequel to 2021's Nobody, about a mild-mannered Bob Odenkirk who's actually a super assassin. Sharon Stone joins the case for the second installment. And on August 29th, we get another spin-off film, Thread, an Insidious Tale. Jeremy Slater, creator of Moon Knight and the Exorcist TV series, writes and directs this spin-off of the Insidious franchise, co-starring Mandy Moore and Kumail Nanjiani. Kicking off the fall movie season on September 5th, we get The Conjuring: Last Rites. Franchise director Michael Chavez is back to tell yet another probably not true story about Ed and Lorraine Warren, played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. It sounds like they may be wrapping up the series, but if movies have taught us anything, the words last or final are totally meaningless when money's involved. Two more horror-adjacent films are scheduled for September 26th. The first is The Bride. Maggie Gyllenhaal wrote and directed this adaptation of Bride of Frankenstein for Warner Brothers after Netflix jumped ship on the movie. This is not part of the Universal Monsterverse. It is apparently a musical. Jessie Buckley plays the Bride of Frankenstein, while Christian Bale plays the monster. Penelope Cruz, Jake Gyllenhaal, Annette Bening, and Peter Sarsgaard also appear. And on September 26th, we get the next Saw film, Saw 11. After Saw X or Saw 10 reinvigorated the franchise, the kills keep on coming with the 11th Saw movie. I don't know what else they could do with the kills and with the timeline, but, we'll see. On October 3rd, we get a movie that has the potential to define the fall movie season, Michael. Antoine Fuqua directs this Michael Jackson biopic with a screenplay from John Logan. Jackson's nephew Jafar Jackson will play the King of Pop, with Coleman Domingo as Michael's father Joe and Nia Long as his mother Catherine. Michael Jackson evokes a lot of different responses from people, so it'll be interesting to see what the reaction from audiences is. Of course, there are several areas of his life that need to be treated with caution and sensitivity. On October 10th, we get a movie called Animal Friends, which is directed by Peter Atencio, who directed a lot of the best stuff from Key and Peele, as well as their movie Keanu. It's being described as a live-action animation hybrid comedy. Ryan Reynolds produces and also stars in the film, alongside Jason Momoa, Aubrey Plaza, Vince Vaughn, Laurel Howery, and more. Also on October 10th is Tron Ares. Tron enters the world of AI when a program is sent out of the game and into our world. Jared Leto reportedly is playing Ares, who may be the personification of this program. Who knows? Evan Peters, Greta Lee, and Gillian Anderson are also in the cast, as is, of course, Jeff Bridges. I actually still need to finish watching Tron Legacy, but we will see if this third Tron film will finally be able to draw in box office numbers that match the franchise's ambitions. On October 17th, The Black Phone 2 is scheduled for release. Scott Derrickson returns to direct and co-write along with C. Robert Cargill. Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw, and Ethan Hawke also are set to return. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do a sequel here, but hey, that's never stopped a horror movie before. Also currently scheduled for October 17th is Good Fortune, the feature directorial debut of Aziz Ansari, who also wrote the script. Keanu Reeves plays an angel whose body switch experiment between Aziz and Seth Rogen goes awry. Exiled to Earth, he's forced to face the consequences of his choices. Keke Palmer and Sandra Oh also star. On October 24th, that sound you're hearing is because Mortal Kombat 2 hits theaters. Simon McQuaid returns as director and Carl Urban joins the cast as Johnny Cage. I somewhat enjoyed the first Mortal Kombat movie, at least the first modern one, although being one of the first movies to come out after COVID shut down theaters may have had something to do with that. Whether it's good or bad, it is unlikely that Mortal Kombat 2 is going to be released day and date on Max, like the first movie was. There are 3 films currently scheduled to open on November 7th. The first is Bugonia, the latest film from director Yorgos Lanthimos. It's a sci-fi movie starring Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, and Alicia Silverstone in a remake of a South Korean film called Save the Green Planet. Also on the schedule for November 7th is Predator Badlands, a theatrical release from director Dan Trachtenberg, who also directed Prey. He's back and shifts the action from the past to the future. Elle Fanning co-stars alongside the Predator. And also recently moving to November 7th is Edgar Wright's adaptation of The Running Man. He's adapting King's original story, not remaking the Schwarzenegger film. Glenn Powell stars as Ben Richards, competing for his life on a twisted reality show. Josh Brolin plays show producer Killian. And you know me, I'm always on board for a new Edgar Wright film. On November 14th, Now You See Me 3 is scheduled to hit theaters. Shockingly, this movie does not, as of now, have a 3 replacing the E in me. Everybody's back from the first 2 films, including Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson, Isla Fisher, and Daniel Radcliffe. On November 21st, Wicked for Good, which is the new title for the Wicked sequel, stakes out the same Friday before Thanksgiving slot that worked out so well last year. The recently retitled finale adapts Act 2 of the stage show, which I've heard is a trickier adaptation than Act 1, so we'll see if they can stick the landing. On November 26th, hitting the slot that worked well for Moana is Zootopia 2, the long-awaited sequel, and honestly, there's no reason to believe that this won't do great business in the same way that Moana 2 did. Jared Bush writes the screenplay and co-directs the film, which finds Nick and Judy hunting a snake, voiced by Ke Huy Quan. This guy is busy. Opening on December 5th is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The first Five Nights movie had a shockingly big opening, followed by a huge drop-off. I find it doubtful that this sequel will be a streaming day-and-date release, however, like the first film. Emma Tammy returns to direct, with the key stars of the first film also coming back. On December 19th, get ready to blue yourself once again because Avatar Fire and Ash is scheduled for release. If it hits this date, it'll only be 3 years between Avatar 2 and Avatar 3, which is really impressive considering that it was 13 years between Avatar and Avatar The Way of Water. This third film in the franchise supposedly includes fire versions of the Na'vi, following the introduction of the Water Tribe that we saw in the last film, and we'll see if Avatar remains invincible at the box office. Also on the schedule for December 19th is the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants. SpongeBob's 4th theatrical film finds him in search of the Flying Dutchman, a ghost to be voiced by Mark Hamill. But will he emerge or be dragged down into the black inky depths? Well, I would imagine that he is going to emerge because I highly doubt that they're going to kill off SpongeBob SquarePants. On December 25th, Timothée Chalamet is getting his second Christmas Day release in a row with Marty Supreme. Josh Safdie directs Chalamet in a movie that's somehow related to ping pong champion Marty Reisman. It's being described as The Wolf of Wall Street meets Catch Me If You Can, and the supporting cast includes, and I'm not just throwing together random names here, Gwyneth Paltrow, Tyler the Creator, and Shark Tank's Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary. Marty Supreme is, along with Benny Safdie's next film, The Smashing Machine, reportedly the most expensive film in the history of A24. Just announced about a week ago, also at some point during the Christmas season, is Anaconda. Jack Black and Paul Rudd star in what I assume is a comic revival of the Giant Snake franchise from the writers of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I don't really know what this is going to be, but it sounds interesting. And that's all the things that we have dates for right now. However, there are a lot of things that are still TBD that we know are coming out in 2025, but don't yet know exactly when. And there are quite a few interesting things that may also be coming out this year that don't even have a nebulous release date because there are new films in the work from directors like Catherine Bigelow, Ari Aster, Celine Song, Luca Guadagnino, Darren Aronofsky, Wes Anderson, Park Chan-wook. All or some of those movies may also be hitting theaters or streaming services or whatever this year, so keep an eye out for those. But as far as the projects that we know do have 2025 TBD release dates, we have The Smashing Machine from Benny Safdie, a biopic of wrestler Mark Kerr, who will be played by Dwayne Johnson. Also on the schedule at some point in 2025 is Demon Slayer Infinity Castle, the first of 3 theatrical films to help wrap up the anime adaptation. Warfare from Alex Garland, his second war movie in a row, is scheduled to come out in 2025. It's co-written and co-directed with Iraq War veteran Ray Mendoza. Also TBD is Wildwood, the latest film from stop-motion animation studio Laika, directed by Travis Knight, about a girl searching for her brother. There are a handful of Netflix original series that'll be hitting in 2025, including Stranger Things 5, I think, who knows? Squid Game Season 3 actually has a follow-up season that they say could be released sometime during the summer. The Sandman Season 2, Wednesday Season 2, One Piece Season 2, and Black Mirror Season 7 are also reportedly on the schedule for this year. A Netflix film that we're also supposedly going to see in 2025 is Havoc. Tom Hardy plays a cop fighting his way through the underworld, and it's directed by Raid director Gareth Evans, which means that if this movie does come out, we will have new movies from Gareth Evans and Gareth Edwards coming out in the same year, so get your notepads ready. I know I am. There are also a couple of other high-profile Netflix films scheduled to be released in 2025. One of them is Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery, the latest in Rian Johnson's mega deal to make Knives Out movies for Netflix. And Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is supposed to be released in 2025, with Oscar Isaac as Dr. Frankenstein and Jacob Elordi as the monster. Mia Goth also co-stars. Finally, Noah Baumbach is coming back with an untitled film that's supposedly on the schedule for 2025 on Netflix. George Clooney and Adam Sandler star in what's only been described as a coming-of-age drama. Patrick Wilson, Greta Gerwig, Jim Broadbent, Laura Dern, Riley Keough, and Emily Mortimer are also listed in the cast. Mortimer co-wrote the screenplay alongside Noah Baumbach. On Disney Plus, Percy Jackson and the Olympians Season 2 is scheduled to be released at some point in 2025. And on HBO and Max, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is scheduled for a 2025 release. This is the second spinoff of Game of Thrones, and it follows the hedge knight Sir Duncan. This show was created by George R.R. Martin, desperate to do anything but finish writing his novels. And finally, at some point in 2025, Welcome to Derry will be hitting HBO and Max. Bill Skarsgård returns as Pennywise in this prequel to It Chapter 1. Jason Fuchs, who co-produced It Chapter 2, wrote several episodes along with It film director Andy Muschietti, who is directing several episodes as well. And these are just the movies and shows that I pulled for 2025. As I mentioned, there are others that are on the release schedule and many more that we don't know about. But what do you think? What are you most looking forward to this year? Let me know down in the comments below, and stay tuned right here on the channel because we're going to be talking about all or most of these things as they come out throughout the year. I think it's going to be an exciting year, especially if a lot of these projects hit. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you'll be notified when I put up a new video. And most of all, thank you for watching this video. I'll be back very soon with more box office news, movie reviews, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Happy New Year.